Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are discussing, we are in SleuthTember. We're recording for SleuthTember, and our first chat is going to be titled Caged Capers, as you have seen from the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about, in SleuthTember, kind of mystery, intrigue, spy game type of things, and we're going to be doing that this time in the focus of being locked down to either a small area, kind of keeping it local to a place, or all the way down to considerations for inside of singular rooms, like escape rooms or something. So we'll go that type of scale there. But before we get into that, we've got to do introductions and announcements. So, I'll start us off like normal, so Scrat can think about what he wants to say. And, I already spoiled for y'all what the shout-out was. Oh well.
Ooh.
It's in the description anyway, so it's in the doobly-doo. It's not like it's that big of a surprise. But, too late. But anyway, I'm Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads. We hope you've been enjoying our content. This past year, our themed months have been continuing. We've been pretty steady with all that. I don't really have a whole bunch of announcements. I'm not sure if by this time they're going to be showing off anything with the monster manual they've been working on at Avenue Studios or not. I know that they've got people working on art. I've done most of my inking, and I need to do the coloring for it. But I'll do that digitally, so we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of winging it on some of it. I've done some before, but I'm winging it on other areas. So we'll see how it goes. Should turn out alright. The inking went fine. I think that's the only thing I have, so just check out those when they come out. I might show some off here if they're alright with it. What do you got going, Scrat?
Well, you know, that is me. I'm Scrat from the Squirrel Plays, and I am over on YouTube, and only YouTube, and I'm still trying, like 2 years into this, figure out exactly what it is I do. Lately, it's mostly been that happy little overlap between story writing and TTRPGs, and then when I'm lucky, I get to review some TTRPGs, and had a bunch of people come into the Discord recently and share their own TTRPGs. I was very happy about that because I threw mine out there. I was like, hey, this is what we're doing. And everybody else was like, well, I'm going to do that too. So they came in. Like, we got one I want to check out called Tails You Die. And it's just coin flips instead of dice rolling. So it's a little... I didn't have time to prep for anything. So here's something I can use super quick kind of thing. So anxious to try that out.
Alright, fair enough. That's a good catchy name too, Tails You Die.
It is. It's great.
They could make that into like one of those 1-page, 2-page, small booklet things.
That's kind of their goal, I think. It's just a few pages in a Word document, so.
There you go. Increase the amount of flips you have to do for different things. Makes sense. Alright. Well, cool beans. Check out Scrat's Discord and all of that and such. In his video, I got him up right here on the screen, so there you go. And since it's just us, I think that's everything as far as our introductions and announcements. So now we can go over to the already spoiled shout out. Our shout out this time is Crack Minis. I've watched some of his content. I like, as you guys might have remembered from some of our previous episodes, I like these scratch building, and I like kit bashing and scratch building videos for minis and such, mainly because it showcases a lot of creativity, thinking outside the box. He's got a lot here, and he's been keeping it up pretty much. It is about once a month, maybe twice a month, that he's bumped up to. And, you can go over there and say, hey, coming over from the end of Planar Crossroads, they shouted you out. There you go. So that's what we've got. And he stays right around the 10 to 15 minute mark on his videos. So they're not too long. You can watch the process of putting it together. Maybe put some of your own together too. If you do, I'd love to hear about it. So, I think that's what we've got as far as our shout out. Anything you need to add before we go into our actual discussion, Scrat?
I'm gonna watch that kid.
You're gonna watch the Kid Bash, huh? Scratch. Well, he calls it Scratch Builder.
But no, I don't have.
We just finished shouting out Crack Minis, so grab your preferred beverage, join us around the hearth as we discuss Caged Capers. Skål.
Alright, minor technical difficulties aside, we made it.
Yeah, there we go. Alright then. Let's see. Scrat said he has never written an actual mystery before, so we won't be able to lean on his experience as a writer, but we might be able to lean on some of his questions after we get some key points out of the way. So, some key points that I have. With Caged Capers, since we're focusing on more localized mysteries, and this can be localized to a town, like we said, a town, neighborhood, all the way down to a room can be considered a caged caper, like those Locked Room or Murder on the Orient Express type of things, where it's just one train type of thing. Those type of small spaces, if you're going to do that type of a mystery, embrace that. And you can even take that opportunity to make more detailed maps so that you can set things around in different ways to allow your players to notice those things that change or are different. With these smaller focus things, you can tell more personal stories. It's a lot easier to tell personal stories. So that can be fun. Of course, I have on here, use real maps, because that is both a cheat and an immersion thing. So it's doubly good to go ahead and embrace the use of those real world maps that you can draw from and have. I did this, if you guys have watched over on Avenue Studios, that's basically what we did. We took a house plan from the 1960s or something like that, 50s, 60s, Sears Roebuck, and used it as our location. And the whole thing, aside from some story type of intro stuff and time passes research, everything took place at that spot. So you had one property, so it very much fulfills this local thing if you want to check that out. Escape rooms are good for inspiration if you're trying to see where to sprinkle clues around, as well as still make it interesting. In fact, you could totally rip one off and just set your game, your a one shot or like a 2 or 3 shot in the room for them to get out. Smaller locations can add more isolation, that more of an isolation feeling to bump up that tension and that drama. Especially if it's a small location, you can also have it where there's a lot of claustrophobia with it. If there's not a lot of room and everybody's trying to move around and position themselves while still not knocking stuff over or breaking anything or something like that, if something's important. That can be a little tricky in non-3D space, though, so be aware of that. Hidden roles are something that, if your players have buy-in on it, can be really effective for simulating that, do I know this thing do I know this thing because it's correct or because I just thought, because my character thought it, type of situation, which can be very interesting when you go in and you're like, oh, well, yeah, we know that this happened and this happened. Well, do you? You didn't see the roll. So it can be fun when you as the GM have conflicting evidence for them and they haven't seen the rolls, so they don't know how good they did. And the final point I have is in media res can be helpful for setting some things up and helping work through like if you're doing a courtroom drama in one little town, you can go backward in time and forward in time with in media res to play out how things went and stuff. There's our sleuth.
Forgot to switch.
Our sleuthy squirrel. Using in media res, like telling a story, which is telling a story from the end first, or being at the end and then telling it from the viewpoint of the different individuals. That can be useful, and you can do that in games. If I remember right, the one I'm thinking of, I think it was either Levi or Kane brought it up. Powered by the Apocalypse has this type of a going back and telling what happened to say why this role was successful or wasn't successful or so on. So that's what I've got as far as our setup and as far as our points for this one from me. Want to put out some of your things you were thinking about, Scrat?
Well, can say on the note of Powered by the Apocalypse, I did get to play my first system that uses that just a week or so ago.
Oh.
It had nothing to do with mysteries, but it was pretty fun. But, well, I take that back. And that leads me to the question of when does it actually become a mystery? We were just getting into that before we hit the record button. So, like, in that game, we were trying to locate a certain individual. Now, is that mystery enough to call it a mystery, or is that just a goal in an otherwise post-apocalyptic world's on fire setting?
Oh, well, I do think the setting can change it, and the setting, the tone, and the way the goal is pursued can all change those things. I guess it depends on. So, like taking your Apocalypse example, there can still be mystery in the Apocalypse. You have mysteries, like your example that you brought up before, chat, with Fallout. In Fallout, it's post-apocalyptic, but you can still solve mysteries. And that's one of the interesting things that happens in Fallout is, with a lot of its environmental storytelling, you have to do the mystery solving yourself. You have to go and look at those different little entries in the terminals and those clues, which do take that as as something you can draw inspiration from, because each of those things can be approached like a mystery. For the post-apocalypse, the thing that's happening is it's a mystery for you, the player, just to figure out. It's not really a mystery inside that world, though, because no one in the post-apocalypse, no one cares why this skeleton died leaning against this terminal, and, all that type of stuff. It's not going to matter in the world, but it matters to you, the player. So, having a mystery for the players to solve is a little different than having a mystery game that you're playing with the characters solving the mystery. So there's not a hard and fast rule, I don't guess. So you like trying to find a person, like you brought that up. That would be something where, depending on how far you are reaching, it could be local or it could be bigger, which is our next chat. But you can have the goal of finding someone, and if you're tracking down clues and you're interviewing people and you're figuring that type of stuff out, it's a lot more of a mystery. but say you switch your setting to fantasy, and now you're not really interviewing anybody, you're tracking them through the wilderness. All of a sudden, that becomes more of an expedition-style game, and not really a mystery game. So, how it is approached seems to be one of the ways that you can figure out if it's actually what you're looking for, as far as a mystery.
Okay. Makes sense. So we're going from that, we were leaning more into the mystery side than I kind of figured, because we were playing Dim Day Red. I don't know if you saw that video I did on it a while back. I keep calling it post-apocalypse, but not really. The world's got 52 more years, I think, or 56. It's slowly getting closer and closer to the sun, so things are getting toasty, and, there's significant chunks of the world that have already burned up and can't be lived in anymore, so, people are getting all shifted around and everything. But, yeah, we were in a busy, I don't want to say market area, because that makes it sound less busy than it actually was, but something akin to that. And we had to locate an individual, so we were having to pull people to the side and try and get some answers. And then we had the side objective. We had to bug some communication, so a little sneaky around there. It was interesting. It was fun. Like I said, that was my first time using the Powered by the Apocalypse system, and I don't know how similar they all are, but it was very, very interesting to do that with your moves, I think is what they call them in that system.
Well, see, there you go. That one was that sounds a lot more intrigue and a lot less, you were busting fewer heads and, picking more brains type of thing.
Yeah, and see, that was the interesting part. Like, you could use that same move a character had could be used either in a social encounter or a physical altercation. So, mechanically, that was very interesting, but that's not much to do with mysteries. So,
well, now you guys were doing that in a bazaar, an open air bazaar or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that adds, so the mystery y'all were solving, I'm assuming, is that the person was here on this street, or something along that line. So you had a localized, you experienced just the other day a localized mystery.
Yeah. Yes, it was very contained.
Very contained. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to do that in your games and stuff like that. Make a and mysteries are things that can be sprinkled in to other types of games. You can have a wider overarching thing happening, but a mystery pops up or some of the framing of the things that the characters need to do is mystery. And people can get kind of spooked with mysteries, like, how am I going to handle all the clues, and how am I going to make it where it's not too difficult to solve, but just difficult enough, or something like that. Well, if you're just sprinkling it in, like this is a little small localized mystery that you're putting in, it works just fine to sprinkle in. Our next chat might not, but this one works fine, having a little caper take place just in this moment, in this little section of the story. Especially, it can be useful for setting people back on track. The players do something and now they've lost one of their items. Well, they've lost one of their items, and the goal as you, the GM, maybe, is to get them back onto the storyline they were supposed to be at. So they track down the thief, and that thief connects them to the Thieves Guild, which they were supposed to find anyway, so on and so forth. Or it connects them to someone in the Thieves Guild who has information about the thing that they were looking for in the big overarching plot. So it can be a useful tool for getting them back on track. It can be a useful tool for just changing up the flavor for every now and then. And that can be really, I guess, variety's the spice of life. So it's tasty when you're playing. having that nice little twist on the flavor of the game. I would say that if you start to get too big, like if you leave, let's say you have New York. New York is huge, but if you make it a point crawl through New York, all of a sudden it's not as huge, and you can only go so many places to try and solve a particular mystery. So, or at least a mystery about this thing or that thing, like finding the serial killer or tracking down the leader of this. You know that the leader of this particular gang is here or there, and you need to find them, kind of like what would happen with Scrat's game, or so on and so forth. You can keep that. The entire city of New York would be crazy to try and crawl through, but you don't have to. You can still make it a caged caper or a caged mystery by just everything's in New York that you need. And you can take it all the way down from New York, which is a metropolis, to a smaller town or like a city, then to a town, then to further and further down, until all of a sudden you can take it into a single room. And something that can be fun with that is doing something like Saw, or a Saw type of theme to it, where they have to get out before they're dead type of thing, and they're stuck with a serial killer. And if they get out and they get enough clues right, they'll figure out who the serial killer was. And then they not only solve the mystery and survive, but they're able to catch the baddie that got him. Or they don't, and the baddie returns for another fun game. So, there you go. So, all of those are options,
Well, on the note of talking about being worried about clues and stuff, I found some article, throw it right there for you. I didn't get to read the whole thing, but the main part was the 3-clue rule, about how he was talking about when you're trying to get your players from point A to point B by discovering something, use at least 3 clues every time. That way they can miss one, misinterpret another one, and half understand the next one. So give them opportunity to miss. And it kind of, when I was doing my that second 5e campaign I did, the last one, you got to a small mystery you were doing, got to a position, and everybody wants to roll perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically roll perception with X stacks of advantage, X being however many other players you got. So I was like, well, this ain't working. So what I ended up doing was I'd have some details, like, I don't know, say they found a body or somewhere. There's different details. It's all right, when one person rolls high enough, they get a detail. When another person rolls high enough, they get another detail. Like, somebody can tell what kind of creature bit this person. Another person can tell where the creature ran off to, that kind of thing. Fortunately, I didn't think of that till way later in the campaign, but it helped.
Yeah.
Not quite 3-clue rule, but, similar vein there. If you got players all wanting to roll perception when it doesn't make sense.
Right. And something I've done to help with that myself is unless a person has a reason for the check, so no one actually rolls perception. In a mystery game, if you have people, they're already going to have high perceptions anyway. They're going to build for the game, usually. And those that don't serve another role in the story. So, you have it where everybody just has their standard perception. Like, they have their, what was it? What's it called?
Passive perception.
Passive, there. That's the word I was looking for. Passive perception, which is basically 10 plus what their modifier, or an average roll for them, or something like that, depending on what system you're in. And then you just, as the GM, you have that actually written down for you, if you want to keep track of it that way, or you just memorize them. And you say, okay, this person would notice this without rolling. this person would notice this with just an average roll, and so on and so forth. And then you can just add in, they can say, I want to roll. You can say, okay, if you roll, you can take your passive or you can roll. And if they know that their passive is pretty high, rolling might actually be more of a risk than a reward. Because you can roll below. And depending on who you are, sometimes you often roll below your average. So that's a way to handle that, so that it doesn't get crazy out of the park of everybody rolls perception just to try and crit type of thing. So that's a way I've handled that. Another point to bring up too is, if you are going to, since we are talking about tabletop, if you're going to have magic in it, be very careful. Crimes of passion can almost always be solved with a little magic, because it's a crime of passion. They're not going to be using any anti-magic fields or anything like that to erase clues necessarily. You could use prestidigitation. That might get rid of clues. That depends. You'd have to think a lot. You kind of have to think hard about how magic works in your setting. If you start to try and work in magic as a major thing inside of the mystery. So be aware of that. Truth-telling magic is really tricky. And a lot of people that would get caught in crimes probably wouldn't be able to handle truth-telling magic. Try to work around the wording and stuff so that they didn't lie and so on. So be mindful of that, especially in mysteries and in working those mysteries.
I would not want to do a mystery in 5e, but now that I say that, I feel like the Dragon Heist module, there is a little bit of a mystery segment to it. I just remember skimming it, because I got it for the very first time I got roped into DMing and everything. I started with the initial intro quest and then chunked the whole thing after that. But I remember seeing a part about, I think, an accidental fireball gets launched in a town somewhere in the city, and you're trying to figure out who done it, where it came from. I guess technically the whole thing is a mystery, because you're trying to figure out who has the big stash of gold. The heist, right? Because there's three suspects in it, I believe. And you're trying to track down who it is, who done it. So I guess you can have a mystery in 5e. But
you can.
I wouldn't want to do it.
I wouldn't. I don't know that I personally would. Low level.
Yeah.
It's not as hard to do it. But if you've got characters with any kind of levels on them, and they have access to any kind of spellcraft that they can either switch out spells, or because 5e is super flexible on what spells you actually know. I think isn't it now where they don't have spells known? They have spells that are, I haven't messed with 5e in so long.
Prepared.
Right, they just have their prepared spells. They got this big long list that they can prepare
and then
from.
you pick which ones you want for that day. That's class dependent, I think, but I forget how that one works. Because like the bard, I'm pretty sure in our party, when she picked one, she was stuck with it. Like that was a permanent choice. Whereas other ones can, they just have a big list, and all right, these are the ones I'm going to use today.
Right. So, depending on how easily accessible magic is, I mean, it's 5e. If it's 5e and you're running it in like Waterdeep or something, there is no reason they couldn't find a Zone of Truth scroll somewhere or something like that. It's the only object then is money. So, and money's not terribly hard to make in 5e. since you have magic. So
That's right.
anyway, magic breaks a lot of stuff. Let me see.
Sure makes it a lot harder.
Right. But thankfully, if you are doing a really localized thing and it's stuck down into a certain area, that area just might have an anti-magic field in it. So now they got to use their brains. So there you go. You could do that. And it wouldn't
Maybe
necessarily...
that's your mystery. Where'd the anti-magic field come from? How did it get here?
That would be something to upset it. So if you had a anti-magic field that just appeared one day, in a high magic setting, and then it started to slowly either creep or grow, that could be that's a mystery, and that's a wider mystery. And if you're catching it small, maybe that's something that could lead to a bigger mystery later. But that's an interesting thing that you could do in a magic setting, and while being localized and still try and figure it out. It's not bad. Alright. We are probably pretty close, if not a little over time, on our final thoughts spot. So, would you like to go first, Scrat, with a final thought? Since it's just us, I'll allow a final question. But
oh, well, shucks. I wish I had known that. Well,
I can't tell you that because then you'll just have a bunch of questions lined up in the.
I'm going to have to make a proposition where instead of final thoughts, we just have Scrat ask a question and everybody has to have an answer.
Scrat's final question.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
It's not bad. Anyway, I got a thought or two, and maybe I'll ask a quick, easy one. But one note was something I had found while doing a little research here, trying to figure out mysteries and whatnot. I did like the idea of what this person in particular called a structured timeline. So things happen regardless of the players. Like, it doesn't wait for them. So, I don't know. Players get to the scene of the murder 8 o'clock that night. And if they don't do X, Y, and Z by 10 o'clock that night, the killer is now elsewhere or setting up some other booby trap for them or something. I was like, I kind of like that idea of things just progressing that the players don't know about. So, like, kind of an encouragement to scoot along and not dilly-dally too long. I don't know how you would keep up with that, keeping up with time to that degree.
It's not as hard as it might sound, because all you have to do, like if you're working a timeline like that, you just have a little spot over to the side where you have a note, and you just say, okay, it's this time right now. What do you guys want to do? And then basically you're asking them what do they want to do for the next 30 minutes or an hour, depending on what they end up saying. And so then you go like, okay, and you start to check off your timeline. And, you can have it broken down by hour or by 30 minutes, depending on how far you want to get granular with it.
Yeah.
So, once you start doing that, I do think that's very important. It was something I meant to write down myself, was the idea of using a timer. And not like a egg timer like we use, or hourglass, but a timer in-game of the murder happened here. You discover the murder. Now you have to solve the murder or the person's going to get away. And you have to track that down and go through it before they do. So you are on a timer. Once the murder's discovered, you're on a timer. Because the murderer is going to hear about it on the news or something like that. So they're going to know that the jig is up. And that they need to start making arrangements. So.
Yeah, the example they had used in that, what I was reading, was actually really cool. It was a storm was going to roll in to town by a certain time, and if they didn't do what they needed to do by then, the storm was going to come through and knock out the power and make things a lot more difficult. So,
nice.
Like, oh man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Ooh, set that in Maine or New York State, Massachusetts, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Have one of them winter storms roll in.
Yeah.
Nice.
Maybe even could trap people too. Keep them from getting around.
Yep. Oh, and then you've got, so it's like a serial killer or something. Then you've got murders continuing to happen, and it's like everybody's getting whittled down like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could even have the, it's like, all right, if X number of murders happen, you lose the game.
Right. If it gets down to just the two, what was it? Like Among Us or something. Well, one way you do that is this is something you can do if you want to make one of the players the killer, is you have everybody come in. You tell them ahead of time, we're going to have it where one of y'all is the bad guy. And you make it where there are some NPCs, so this is my final thought. You make it where there are some NPCs, but you have the player think that one of these things, you have the players come in and they're like, okay, one of us is the killer. One of the player, here's how you phrase it, just so you're honest with your players. You say, okay, one of us at the table is the killer. And y'all come into me and I'm going to give you a slip of paper. And that slip of paper lets you know if you're the killer or not. But don't say anything, don't do anything. Okay? Everybody's buying in to the mystery. And you give them, you can do it where you either do give one of them a slip of paper saying you're the killer or something like that, and then everybody sits back down at the table, or you do it where everybody comes in and none of them get the killer one because you, the GM, are playing the NPCs and one of the NPCs is the killer. But they're going to think that one of them has to be the killer because the GM said one of the players at the table is a killer. The GM is a player.
Lied to you. Tricked me.
Tricked you, but didn't lie to you.
Yeah.
So, that would keep it
out there.
That would be pretty fun. Especially for if it's like a sum shot. Where you could do a one shot if you do it long enough game. Or if they get pretty aggressive in their pursuit. You could do a one shot. But it would be really good for like a 2 or 3 shot. Where the players that didn't know, like they get eliminated. Because somebody's killing them. Somebody's doing the killing. So it's one of those interesting things. You can do it. They start to get eliminated and they can watch the story play out. And you could have them making rolls for the GM can let them make rolls for NPCs and stuff so that they are still participating in the game, still getting to play in the game. So, yeah.
Well, the comment has to be Among Us. You can't not do that.
Yeah. Okay, so comment for this time. We can twist that. The GM is super sus.
Oh,
that's
GM is always sus.
Oh, the GM is always sus. Yes, that one. The GM is always sus. That's the comment for this time. The GM is always sus. All right. Well, that means we've got our comment. We've got our final thoughts done. Well, mostly done. We should probably have some carryover. So, anything you want to go into before we start to switch to our next subject?
I was thinking about saying for the next one, but if we got a second, how long do you think a mystery thing should be? And by long, I mean like how many sessions?
Well, people play different length of sessions. So if you're playing 1 hour sessions like I'd like to do, but you do it more often, then you can have like 10 sessions or something like that. You know, working through working an hour each time or doing an hour each time. But if you're having longer sessions, so it basically, I guess it balances out to about 10 hours. So if you play 2 big sessions, 2 5-hour sessions each time, you could probably do a mystery pretty well. That's usually a lot of Call of Cthulhu mysteries, which are very much mysteries, or are very much problem-solving puzzle games. You can do those in about 1 session, 2 sessions, sometimes 3, if you want to take your time and stuff, and do a nice little bit of RP. So, I would say 10 to 15 hours is a nice, comfortable range, usually, depending on your players. And it depends if you're just pouring this into a pre-existing game or not, too. So.
Alright.
Alright.
Works for me. I got another question for the next one, but you'll have to stay tuned for that one.
Stay tuned for the next exciting episode of Around the Hearth. Yeah. I did it too game showy. I needed to do it more. Around the Hearth. Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we appreciate y'all coming. Thank you for stopping by the Inn of Planar Crossroads. You can check out our webpage, innofplanarcrossroads.com or theiopc.com. Any one of those should work. It's got our YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, all the links you need for us. You can check out A Squirrel Plays on YouTube. He doesn't know what to say he does, but it's just because he doesn't want to say he's a content creator. Yeah.
Making something.
So, there you go. Check out Crack Minis for some scratch building, different things, and tell them Inn of Planar Crossroads sent you. Yeah, we appreciate that. I think that's everything. So, as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and grab our preferred beverage then. And we hope you join us around the hearth on this, actually it's kind of temperate where I am, so on this lovely September afternoon. Alright, we are going to be discussing, like we said, caged capers. And I'm going to have a search thing up just in case we need it. Caged capers. Did you have some notes, or would you like me to start off with some notes that I have, Scrat?
Are you back?
I didn't know I went anywhere.
Yep. As soon as I said that's all I have, is started going.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe someone connected to the internet or something. But, okay, so you didn't get to do the toast, so rewind. More edit. I might do something in post, or the viewers might have just had me do rewind. Okay. So, alright, got that one. I'm gonna switch away from Crack Minis, because then I won't spoil it for the next time. Because people jump in the middle of these things. Alright, I'm gonna check this one.